welcome back to the channel. And today we'll be discussing about uh, change data capture and incremental load. So far we've been doing only the full loads. As you can see, we're just directly using the select star from, and we are just fetching all the data for each run. But to enable CDC, there is a small changes to be done for this query. You can just simply add where clause, and you can just mention from date and to date, and it gathers the data, fetches the data only between those column, like only between those dates if the new data is added. So in short, so how this pipeline changes if you enable a CDC, like if you enable CDC and have it to be like work as a incremental load pattern. So you have two lookups over here and one store procedure after this copy data. So this store procedure is to update um, the watermark column with the latest value. So let's say yesterday you did a full load. So in the CDC table, yesterday's maximum date will be loaded as a watermark column. This is an example. So watermark column, and we need a from date and a to date. So this from date will be fetched from this watermark table, and to date will refer to the current maximum data as per today. So today's date we will be having, and in this particular copy act data over here, we in the where clause we have yesterday's maximum date and today's date, or and based on that only those data will be fetched and only those data will be copied. So this is one of the simple pipeline. And here, before even proceeding to do any CDC, here how it is, we should enable the CDC at SQL Server level. As of now, I I cannot perform CDC in this particular device because this is an Express edition, but I need at least a standard edition to even work with CDC in this SQL Server. So first, usually we do this, like I just found the sample codes online and I just trying to explain. So you enable the CDC at the database level first, and you can just use this to check if the CDC is enabled for the database. If it is 0, that is it's not enabled. If it is 1, then it is enabled, and this you can use to enable it. And here you can use this particular code to enable at the table level. This is the schema and this is the table, and this you usually provide this. By default you don't have to provide this. If you want a more summarized out like summarized explanation, like let's say if inserted record 1 inserted record 2, if you want in that way you don't have to enable this. But if you want two records inserted or 5 records updated, something like that, then you make sure you enable this. It just summarize and only provide the net changes. And usually you create a watermark table, and it could be any LSN, and you then create a store procedure, which like I said, to update the watermark table within that, sorry, to update the watermark column in the watermark table, you create a store procedure and you run the store procedure in this ADF. So here you can just add a store procedure activity, and you can just, once you connect the same link service, and you can just see the store procedure of that particular database. So now let's see how like what is incremental loading in a simple step. It's like why it is important, because it is faster, cheaper, and more reliable, handles large tables, and more production friendly. And and now incremental load patterns, you have many methods how you do it. One is high watermark column pattern, meaning this is a simple straightforward, you just work with the query, and the watermark column could be anything, like it could be identity columns or auto incremental keys or timestamps, could be anything. Like keep track of the largest value previously loaded on each run, loads only the greater than the uh, watermark value. And now this pattern is fast and simple but does not detect updates or delete, but used when data is append only and surrogate keys ID always increases. So one is modified date plus watermark table, which I just previously showed a sample, like we create a watermark table and a watermark modified date. So used when you need inserts and updates, but no deletion handling. You add or use a column like modified date or last updated date, something like that. You create a table, right? And you use this for the incremental query in the copy activity, which it only fetches the data greater than that modified or that watermark table. So you just, like I said, you look up for that modified date, and in the copy activity you use this query to fetch the data only for the new records, and stored procedure updates that particular watermark table. So use when source does not support CDC. um, Use, you want simple incremental loads and you don't need delete detection. And one is, another one is file based detection, like how you save the file based on the date, and you can fetch, um, you can use get metadata, and based on that, I mean, you don't use that exact file name, but you can just get the metadata of the file name, and based on that watermark column, you can just get the newly inserted files. The other one is metadata driven ingestion, like you have a control table. Control table is to get the table name and the query and the watermark column and the date. Based on this, you fetch the data for each table, like look up all the metadata rows, and for each table build a dynamic SQL metadata and perform incremental load and update watermark table for each table separate after every processing of each table. So this allows one pipelines and 100 plus tables and no manual configuration, high scalably hybrid ingestion. Now CDS with CDC with ADF. So incremental patterns above work well but do not capture deletes, and modified date is not a foolproof. CDC in database engine feature designs for inserts, updates, and deletes, late arriving transaction, and high precision changes, just like this one. Like I said, enabling over here and doing it. Now in SQL we have change tracking. So SQL usually have one is CDC and one is change tracking. The first one is like this change tracking. It is a lightweight and it tells you which row changed, inserted, update, but does not give you before and after values, delete data, and fully change history. Is more like a SCD type 0. And the other one is CDC. So it captures pretty much everything: insert, updates, deletes, transaction log details, and LSN log sequence number. So coming to that log sequence number, you can see that we are using it often. Log sequence number, like think of it, that SQL Server transaction log as a long movie tape, and each change is a frame in the movie, and SQL Server gives each frame a number, and that number is nothing but LSN number, and you update that watermark table with the maximum number, meaning the most recent change. And how ADF implements, just like I explained you, like it read the last lesson from the SQL and query CDC function, copy changes to ADLS and update the watermark table and trigger the Databricks to process the changes. ADF does not not apply CDC to your like final table. It just by default ADF doesn't have that to directly do it, but we have to configure it based on that. based on the pipeline we have to configure. And now ADF plus Databricks. And once the CDC changes lands in the ADLS, we use a compute layer to apply the changes. Most teams uses Databricks notebook or Synapse SQL scripts because you are inserting, right? So the new records will be landing in the raw layer, and over there you have to give like some, you have to create some Databricks scripts to check whether to update or ups or like whether to update or insert, create some upsert logic over there, and you have to merge the data to the existing one. So we can see how, I mean, the data ADF, we can just create a simple project for the entire CDC in the later video. I'll see how I can use CDC, because as of now, like I said, I have Express. So if that, I'll try to work out with this, and I'll just see to create a complete on-prem to cloud migration with CDC enabled. I'll try to create that particular project in the future. But for now, we will just only see the uh, theory for this. And now let's see how we are handling deletes, update, and last arriving data. Like how to handle deletes, like CDC stores deletes as like underscore dollar operation equal to one. You merge logic handles this way by when matched and the source is delete, then delete. So incremental time stamp patterns cannot detect deletes. CDC is required. So how to handle update? Updates comes as before update 3, after update 4. Net changes mode gives you only the final version, which is this one. Merge updates the row in the silver. And the last arriving, because CDC uses LSN ordering, even if the changes arrive later, your merge will apply them correctly in order. And so summary, to summarize this entire thing, incremental load patterns are good for inserts and updates, cannot detect deletes, simple and fast, best for small tables and basic OLTP sync, and CDCs for full capture of insert, updates and deletes, and handling late arrival date, and bulletproof enterprise grade and required for financial auditing and mission critical systems. So together, ADF plus CDC plus Databricks create a fully automated modern lakehouse pipeline. Yeah, so these two are the most powerful topics in the data engineering, and you'll see this concept in every real world project. So in our next module, we'll be learning into a real world, like we'll be learning about some real world data engineering architecture. Yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.